Hello, welcome. This is Journey to Positive Choices. Today I have a very special guest on the show with me, Miss Brandee Barnes Pemberton, Dr. Brandee Barnes Pemberton, as a matter of fact. Brandee, welcome.
Thank you.
You're
Happy
very
to be
welcome.
here.
Well, just tell us a little bit about your practice and where you're at.
All right, so I'm a family medicine doctor in Weatherford at Star Family Medicine. And I've been there about a year and a half. Coming on 2 years in January. It's been quick, but it's been a blessing. So Weatherford's growing tremendously. So we have a ton of new patients daily. So it's been a good transition.
Yeah, actually it's where I go to see Dr. Cadby there, and it's a good group. So yeah, we're going to give them a shout out on Journey to Positive Choices podcast,
Yes.
Star Family Medicine.
Yeah.
Well, I've known Brandee most of her life. Brandee and her parents and brother lived right down the road from us when we were in Brock, and Brandee was best friends with my daughter Mandy that was killed in 1998. And I know that you and Mandy went through a whole lot of things when you were growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you were involved in a lot of sports. You can kind of touch on that a little bit if you'd like.
Yeah, so Mandy actually was one of the, I should say, I'm going to try not to get emotional.
It's okay if you do. And I know, Brandee, that this is hard, but here's the thing that I try to tell people, and for those that are listening, what we're wanting you to know is that God can sustain us through everything.
Yes.
In Psalms 55:22, I'm just going to read that real fast. It says, "Cast your cares on the Lord, and He will sustain you. He will never let the righteous fall." And, you know, I believe that Mandy lived her life that way.
100%, yeah.
And that because I know you too, and how you grew up in church, and she always looked to the Lord, and she let the Lord guide her. You guys were always positive. You were always reaching out to people. And I know Mandy we talked about it a while ago. She was a social butterfly.
Oh yeah.
You know, and if you were a new kid at school,
Yes.
you were gonna meet Mandy McWhorter.
100%. That's what I was gonna say. My first day at Brock, actually, it was pretty funny because she was one of the first that came up to me, introduced herself with her bubbly little personality, and within a few days of being there, I realized that everyone loved Mandy because of her. She had a great, not only great personality, but she had a good heart. You know, so. I remember, I'll actually never forget, I had been there probably about a week at Brock, and I moved there in the 5th grade from Millsap, and one of the girls asked me, I was a gymnast, Mandy was also a gymnast, and so one of the girls asked me to do a back handspring, and so I was like, okay, so I did a back handspring, and then I can't remember the girl's name, but she came to me afterwards and said, "We only have one queen in Brock, and that's Mandy McWhorter."
Oh, that's funny.
She said, "You will not be the queen." And I was like, "I'm not trying to be the queen. They asked me to do a back handspring." So anyways, Mandy, that was Mandy's presence. Everyone just loved her, and they, you know, if you knew her, you loved her. So anyways, she was very welcoming from 5th grade until our sophomore years. You know, we were, you know, close because we played basketball together, we cheered together, we played volleyball together, we did track together, we did everything. So
yeah, y'all were always together doing things.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I'll never forget is that you guys as a group, no matter where we were at, whether we were playing league basketball or playing, you know, for Brock or whatever, you guys were always so nice and so accommodating to the other teams and the other people.
Yeah.
You know, you were always saying hello to them, making sure everything was okay.
Yeah.
you know, and that meant a lot to a lot of people. To this day, it still does.
Yeah.
You know, the first time I saw you in a while was when I had to come into the doctor's office, and I'd heard that you were there. And what was the first thing you did? You come up, you said, "Hey, how you doing?" You give me a hug. I mean, you were just you just made me feel so relaxed and very accommodating, and that's how you guys were.
Yeah. I think we were, you know, it was kind of crazy during that time. We all had very similar personalities.
Yeah.
And so all of us were, you know, I'd say easygoing, and some were more social than others. You know, like Whitney was the quieter one, but like Stacy was outgoing, Mandy was outgoing, Lacey was outgoing. Like, you know, we had a lot of our group that just was everyone kind of, I don't say attracted to us, but like just because we were always so friendly.
Well, and all your personalities fit together.
Yes, yeah.
You complemented each other
yeah.
on all these things, and you know, I think that's a blessing from God that he kind of had all you guys together, because there was a lot of things that you guys had to go through, that you had to grow through.
Yeah.
You had to learn.
Yeah.
I remember, I mean, and Mandy, good Lord, she wasn't afraid to do anything.
No.
And who was it? Her and Taylor on the four-wheeler.
Yes.
And Mandy
Ruptured her spleen.
Yeah,
I was driving.
spleen.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I thought we weren't going to talk about that one, Doug, but that might have been my fault, because maybe I was going a little too fast. But I'm sure Mandy was telling me to go faster. Is what I remember. I'm just
Well,
kidding.
that's all right. Like I said, there are always things that we learn and we grow. You know, we go through, and I just thank the Lord that group was together. Now I'm going to kind of fast forward up to the day of the accident, when the girls were killed, because we had played a basketball game at Grayford. I remember I tell everybody that, and I'll kind of let you, because it's actually kind of a blessing, a miracle, whatever you want to call it, that you were not in the car with them. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I always, you know, Friday, Saturday night, we hung out, and we were all, you know, to be honest, pretty good kids. Our fun was usually watching a movie together, going, you know, if we went to Fort Worth, it was to watch a movie or something. We never really got into too much mischief, I guess. So it was Friday night after the Grayford game, as you said. And it was pretty late, because I think the boys played after us and everything, and we cheered for that game. And I think it was Mandy or Stacy that came up and said that they were going to go to Fort Worth. And, you know, my parents were like, it's kind of late. Maybe, you know, I don't think you should go to Fort Worth this late. And as I was kind of telling Doug earlier, Mandy was more of the social butterfly. Like, I guarantee you, if y'all told Mandy, she'd been like, I really want to go. And, you know, because she was the social butterfly. Me, so much, I was like, okay, I don't care. Like, I want to spend time with my friends, but I'm with them all the time, so it's fine. So I just, you know, my parents said no, and I said that's fine, and I, you know, went home. And at the time, I had my learner's permit. I was 15, about to be 16 in 1 month, and I didn't normally get to drive to Weatherford on my learner's permit without my parents, but I don't know, I guess this night my mom felt sorry for me because I didn't get to go to Fort Worth. So she, my friend Taylor, or it was our friend Taylor, all the girls, she wanted to go to Sonic or something just to get a drink, which was, you know, probably the only thing at Weatherford at that time. So my mom said, sure, y'all can go to Sonic and then, you know, come right back. And I had a phone that was only to be used in emergency. So I took the phone with me, but it wasn't allowed to be on during the, you know, in the car. So it's not like my mom could have called me or anything. So I left, and as soon as I was pulling out of the driveway, Whitney called and said, hey, we're headed to Weatherford. Actually, we're going to come pick up Brandee since, you know, we're just going to Weatherford. And my mom said she's pulling out of the driveway right now. You know, maybe I'll see her in town. But yeah, so, and that was...
You missed being in that car by
minute.
a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, we don't have to go through all the details of everything else, because I mean, when the accident happened, it just spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody showed up at the hospitals. There were people at the accident scene. I mean, you know the whole story.
Yeah.
And you were there through all of it with all the different families.
Yeah.
And you know, I remember you were at every funeral.
Yes.
You know, we were all in all the funerals, and then because Mandy was in your class.
Yes.
And so, you know, at her funeral, it was a lot of your classmates.
Mm-hmm.
There was just a lot that went on during that time that you guys as sophomores or 15 and 16-year-olds, I mean, you normally, that's not something that you go through.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know it was very hard on a lot of people. I mean, it was hard on me as a father,
Yeah.
but I could see all of that in Mandy's friends, because y'all would always come over and make sure I was okay, that things were going on, you know, and that meant a lot to me. But, you know, we all have to continue growing, and we all have to continue trying to move forward. So I guess one of the things that I was going to ask you, and what I would like people to understand, is that, you know, no matter what we go through, God can help us overcome anything.
Yeah.
Whether it's a death, or whether it's an illness, or whether it's a loss of a job, or it doesn't matter what it is. If we allow God to help us and we look to Him, He will always help us. I mean, you know, it tells us in that Psalms, He won't allow the righteous to fall, that He's always going to be there for us.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you kind of tell a little bit of the story, because you are now a practicing doctor.
Yeah.
And you and I haven't really ever talked about it.
No.
So this is the first for me.
Yeah.
And it means a whole lot to me that you're here.
Well.
And I want you to tell me the story of what led you to do what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I mean, probably prior to the accident, I was, you know, never really been in the hospital. Like, my grandparents were still living. Had never really seen anyone die, you know, so that was my first experience, you know, with death, with a close, you know, family friend, you know, or whatever, close friends, I guess I should say, 4 friends. So, it was, and is life-changing, and I think for anyone that goes through, I mean, life's hard, right? So everyone has their thing that they can say, this changed my life, you know. And at the time, obviously, you don't think it's going to be for the better, but looking in retrospect, I see what God's done in my life, and how I'm able to help people every day, and it's literally only by the grace of God. So what happened is my parents aren't in medicine, you know. I have a cousin that was a nurse, you know, but other than that, everyone in my family's coaches and teachers. So, including my brother and my sister-in-law, and so medicine just wasn't something that I was like, oh, I'm gonna go into medicine.
Well, we didn't grow up practicing medicine.
Yeah.
We grew up playing sports.
Yeah.
And going to sports things and doing all of that.
Yeah, for sure. So when I first got into college, I was actually, you know, I was like, man, I think I might maybe want to be a nurse, because I saw the nurses at the bedside in the hospital, and how, specifically in the neuro ICU where Mandy and Lacey were, you know, how attentive they were, how, and I'm going to be honest, I don't remember a lot of details. I think it's just a coping mechanism that I've developed over time, but I do remember that they were caring, they were constantly there for you and your family during the difficult time, and the Osinas as well. But I just remember them making a difference during a very difficult time. And so I was like, you know what? I feel like I could probably do that. So I had prayed, and I knew nothing about nursing. And so I went in and I ended up getting a bachelor's in nursing from UTL Science Center in San Antonio. I went to undergrad at UT in Austin, then ended up transferring and getting a bachelor's in nursing. And I did ICU nursing for about almost 10 years. It was a little over 9 years. And I loved being at the bedside. I felt like I made a difference in people's lives. Saw a lot of people pass away, unfortunately. Prayed with a lot of families before their family members passed away. I remember there was an older gentleman that didn't have any family, and he knew he was dying, and I guess him and his son had an estranged relationship. I don't really remember. I was in San Antonio at the time, and he was like, I don't want to die alone. And so I sat there after my shift, held his hand, and he died, and I prayed with him. And I don't know if he knew the Lord or not, but he prayed with me, and he passed away peaceful.
God has given you. I tell everybody he gives us gifts. He's given you a gift. You and I were talking about that, and I've had to be in rooms with people, young people that I really didn't even know, but their parents knew that my story and knew what I've been through, what I've done, and so they wanted me to be there with them.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of teenagers, even older people. I mean, I've seen them pass away, and I think that God uses us in those times to help comfort the person that's passing away or comfort the family that's there.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell a quick story, because I don't know if you know it or not, but Nicole, my daughter now, she was in a real bad accident when she was 17.
Oh, wow.
She was T-boned there in Weatherford. They had to care flight her to Harris Hospital. Well, I was out of town working, and Sharon called me and told me how bad it was and all that, and so I took off and was going to meet them at Harris Hospital in downtown Fort Worth. Well, when I got there, a nurse was looking for me, because Sharon told them, I wear a cowboy hat and all that. So they found me, and they just took my hand and they led me down to where Nicole was, because it was bad.
Yeah.
And here's the shocking thing. When I walked into Nicole's room, it was the same room that Mandy passed away in.
Oh, wow.
And I turned white as a sheet. And the nurse had to sit me down, and they were, the people there helped take care of the situation.
Yeah.
Now, Nicole survived, but it was pretty bad. She fractured her pelvis 3 places in the front, a place in the back. She had a compound fracture in her right leg.
Wow.
They had to do surgery. She has metal plates. She still today lives in pain from that accident.
Wow.
But through that time, because when I was at the hospital with Mandy, okay, the nurses were there. They tried to make everything as comfortable as possible. Same thing with Nicole. So I appreciate what people like you were doing, trying to help not only take care of the patient, but take care of the people that are there also. And I'll let you go on with your story.
Yeah, no, I never knew that. That's wild. I don't know how you did that. Well, I do know how you did it, by the grace of God. But
that's it.
But most people wouldn't have been able to walk into that room again, and especially having now a second child. After have a motor vehicle accident. So, but I do feel like, just kind of like you said, every experience in life makes us who we are today, and even though obviously I would take back them, that accident, all
I know.
all that pain, it has molded me into the person I am today. And you too, probably,
Yes,
honestly.
It has. And so you went from being a nurse.
Yeah. So I was very happy being a nurse. And so I say, God really God did really, rock my world. Because I was very happy being a nurse. I felt like I was making a difference in people's lives. And my husband and I had bought a house. We were very comfortable, and then God started working on me and being like, this is not what I want for you. And I was like, wait a minute, no, I'm good. I'm good. Can we just continue this? And so I'm not gonna lie, I pushed back a lot. I was like, no, I'm good, And then he started making me not like being a nurse, which then I knew, and I had to, get on my knees and pray and be like, okay, why am I miserable in my job? It's because I wasn't doing God's will for my life.
That's right.
And I should have not fought it. So lesson learned there again, one of the millionth lessons I've learned in my life from God. But so I kind of ended up giving in, and I thought, you know what? No one's going to go for this. My husband's not going to go for it. He's not going to go for, okay, can we just cough up $500,000 for me to go back to school and me not have an income for 8 to 10 years?
And you get accepted into all these schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and move, have to sell our house and move, So I told Brian, I said, hey, I'm thinking about going back to medical school. And he was like, that sounds like a great idea. And I was like, what? So I was not very happy I was happy he was so supportive, but I was like, oh my goodness, this is definitely God. So I just knew that God was in it. And it was not, I think people think, when God's in it, it's going to be easy.
No, it's not.
It's not.
No.
So
but
I think
it's easier that you're doing God's will.
Yes.
But it's not easy.
Yeah. So I think that's something that when I was younger, I thought, if God's in it, it's just going to be easy. No, not at all. So I started looking into, I was had a bachelor's in nursing. What I needed to do, that was a feat in itself, trying to find out, because no counselors would talk to me because I wasn't going to the school yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I had to find out myself what classes, pre-med classes, I needed to even start the process. So anyways, long story short, I did all the research myself, found out I needed organic chemistry, biochemistry, physics, statistics. I had about 7, and most of them had labs, 8 labs I had to do. Well, I was still working full time because I had a house to pay for.
Right.
So we put our house on the market, and I worked, I went to school Monday through Thursday, and I worked 12-hour shifts in the ICU on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I did that for a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, and I 110% would have not have been able to do that without God, because I will tell you that I am, I don't feel like I'm the smartest person ever. I'm definitely not. God has given me the knowledge 110%, because through that I would not have been able to make the grades that I made, because I don't feel like on my ability alone, I don't have that ability to have that knowledge. I don't. And so I had a 4.0, and I was like, okay, I'll be able to apply to medical schools, and this will be easy from this point. No, once again, not. So I took the MCAT, and mind you, I was about 28 at the time, 29, and I haven't had biology or any of my general chemistries in forever. And so I had to kind of reteach myself a lot of that.
Right.
And my first statistics class, actually it was my first calculus class, that I had to have, the professor gave us I was going to UTSA, and he gave us a test and said, it's the first day of class, if you can't pass this Algebra 2 test, then you might as well just walk out. Well, I made a 10 because I hadn't had Algebra 2, and actually clept out of college algebra in my junior year in high school, so I hadn't had it in over 10 years. And so I went up to him and I said, you don't understand, I have to have this class to move forward. And he said, well, you made a 10. There's
no
nothing.
way.
There's nothing you can do. And I said, please tell me, give me a chance to. I'll reteach myself. So he gave me a book and said, if you can do, and it was a large textbook, if you can do these first like 300 questions and you know how to do it by Monday, which it was Friday, and I worked all weekend, remember? Then you can stay in the class. Otherwise, I just recommend you dropping it. And I was like, I'm not dropping it. So long story short, I ended up making an A in the class, and that's by the grace of God. He gave me the perseverance to keep going. When I look back at it, I'm honestly shocked.
Well, there's a lot of encouragement behind what you're doing now. And I know you're a very strong-willed person. And when you get something on your mind and you set a goal, you're going to do everything there is to do that. But you're also being pushed from 4 other sources too, if I can say that.
Yeah.
And Mandy's there saying, no, you keep going.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. I think that I've always felt like they have been with me, and like I needed to help people for them. You know?
And that's a God thing, because He's instilled that into your heart. Mm-hmm. And I think, anyway, you made it through school. Yeah. You had to go through how many years of?
So it was about 1.5 years of pre-med classes that it would have been faster if I didn't have to work full time, but because I worked full time, it was about 1.5 years. And then I applied, and I got put on the waiting list at UTL Science Center San Antonio and Texas Tech, and I did not get off the waiting list. They let about 80 back then. They let about 80 in on average, and they had about, it was like 3,000 applicants or something like that. And because I was, one thing was I was almost 30. I was old. I was what they considered a non-traditional student, and they don't really let like non-traditional students back then. They were like, and actually one of my attendings that I ended up going to residency, she said she remembered me. She interviewed me when I got put on the waiting list. Right. And so anyway, so I ended up, I was like, I can't wait. You only apply once a year. And I was like, I can't wait another year. I'm old, so I'm old. So at the time, I was actually doing a nursing contract job, and my husband was now in Houston, based out of Houston because he's a pilot, and we had moved to Houston. And I completed all my classes, and I was deciding if I'm going to take the MCAT again or what I'm going to do, reapply. And there was a doctor, a pulmonologist in Houston where I was working, and he had said, oh yeah, I went to Ross University School of Medicine. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, oh, it's a US-based Caribbean medical school. And I was like, oh. He was like, you should look into it. They take people twice a year, so you don't have to wait a whole another year. And I was like, okay. I was like, it's US accredited. He was like, it's US accredited. He kind of told me about it. Well, long story short, Colby Voigt, who graduated, Mandy and I were in class with, he went to medical school there. So I found that out. I don't even remember how. And then called Colby. He had just graduated. He told me it was great. He had learned a lot. He was in residency now, and blah, 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 blah. He had nothing but good things to say about Ross. So I looked into it a few weeks later, and then had interviews and got it admitted. And within 2 months, we were moving to Dominica. So once again, my very supportive husband dropped everything, and he was still flying. At that time, he changed his base. I think now he was with Spirit, and he changed his base was in Dallas. And Spirit had a Florida base, a Lauderdale base, and so he actually was closer to Dominica. Right. So he was based out of Lauderdale for a while, and so I lived on the island. Brian came back and forth every few months for 2 years, and I did all my didactics, so all the studies there, which was it was a little bit rough because it was a third world country. People think that it's a Caribbean island. No.
It's okay right there at the resort, but there's a whole nother big part of that.
Exactly. So that I would say that is when I really learned how much I needed the Lord. Throughout everything before I did, but that's when I started a regimen that I still do to this day. First thing when I get out of bed, I get on my knees and pray.
And I'm very thankful for that.
Not because it was, extremely difficult, but I just realized how much I needed him or I wouldn't survive.
And you know what, Brandee? I want to say something, because right there, this is the whole point of why we do what we do. I want people to realize that you can't make it in this world
110%
without Jesus Christ as your Savior, without God guiding your life. Things have changed so much.
Yeah.
And to hear you say that the first thing you did was get on your knees. If everybody would do that, this would be a totally different world.
Oh, for sure.
But go ahead.
Yeah. So, very long story short. So 2 years I did in Dominica, and then 2 years I did in Florida, where I did my clinicals in Florida. But something that, once again, I'm not the smartest person in the room by any means. But I do work hard. But God gave me the ability to learn and know and retain medical knowledge, because and anytime any patient comes in and says anything to me about, I've been to 10 doctors and no one figured this out and blah blah blah, and you helped me, I say, it wasn't me. I said, I prayed for you before I came in here.
That's right.
And I ask for knowledge every day when I get on my knees. I ask for God's knowledge to help me take care of his people. Exactly what I say.
Because they're his people.
Exactly. Yeah. So, long story short, I ended up with a 4.0 in medical school, which was 8 out of about, I think it was 700 students. And like I said, it was not by me alone at all, because I look back and I'm like, how did I do that? I can't explain the amount of material that I retained. It's just not, I would never be able to do that on my own. And so, yes, some people are able to, they have photographic memories. They can do they can do all of those things, but that's not me. So now today, I went to residency in San Antonio at UT Health Science Center, where it was a great program. Learned a lot, once again, prayed a lot to get through that as well, because we had a son. I found out I was pregnant the day we were moving to residency, which residency is a lot of 24-hour shifts,
right.
Not much sleep. So I found out the day we were packing up and moving, I was pregnant with Waylon.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and we had tried, before, and it didn't happen. We both just kind of, my husband and I had been, at that point, been together probably, I don't know, not married that long, like married, I guess, 9 years, yeah. But together for like 15 years probably, or something like that. And we kind of both just were like, I guess we can't have children, and that's just how God planned it, so we just can't have kids. And then ended up getting pregnant with Waylon, and had a kid during residency, which, again, by the grace of God, my husband was amazing, supportive, took care, basically raised our son because I wasn't home a lot. And then I came back. My grandparents just moved here back to Weatherford to be with my mom, and she was going to Dr. Cadby, my grandma and grandpa, and they said, "This is the best doctor, he's so sweet, he listens, blah, blah, blah." And then I told him you were about to be graduating, and he called me, and here I am. And I had prayed that I wouldn't have to drive to Fort Worth, just because we live out in Brock, and it's a long distance, and it's just more time away from my family. And so I was praying and praying, but all I was getting at the time was Baylor, Scott and White, and Fort Worth, and I just didn't want to be, that far away. So once again, God stepped in and allowed me to be 10 minutes away from my house, and it has been a blessing. I pray with patients a lot. Before I go into the room, I say a quick, tiny little prayer, and then if I feel like whatever they're going through, mentally or physically, and they're open for it, then I pray with them. And
there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm very proud of everything that you've been through, where you've come from to where you're at now. I truly believe that your faith and your strength and your reliance on God has really grown.
Yes.
A lot.
Tremendously.
From 15 years old to whatever you are now.
41.
Well, we all.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes though, people go opposite,
mm-hmm.
and they go away.
Yeah.
But God wants us to continue to go with Him, and He's going to help us grow every step of the way.
100%.
And so, out of everything that we've talked about today, I think that is kind of the resounding story or theme that I've kept hearing from you, is that from the time the girls had the accident to where you're at now, it's your reliance
mm-hmm.
on God.
Oh, 100%.
It's your prayer life with God. It's your getting into God's Word and letting Him guide you in all the decisions that you make.
Yes.
And if you were to tell people out there any one thing, I think it would be that you've got to rely on God to help get you through.
For sure. And it's so sad because I see a lot of people, struggling every day. And I'll tell you that being on the other side and seeing people struggle is not easy, right? So every day having, 20, 22, however many patients you see that day, either mentally struggling or physically struggling can wear a person out, because you bury,
right.
you hold on to their burdens, right? You try not to do that, but you're human, so they're gonna weigh on you. And I think one thing that I've also learned very quickly in this, almost 2 years of being in practice, is that I will not get burnt out, because every day I ask for rejuvenation from the Lord to help His people, because I kind of was already getting burnt out at, because it's overwhelming taking people's burdens. But, you give those burdens to God, and He'll carry them. So, and I try, because it is hard to see patients struggling, and you're like, man, I wish I could just, and sometimes I do, I fill the room because I don't want to be too pushy, right? So,
right.
And I'll just say, I'm not sure if you're a religious person, but, and then I'll kind of just see.
But He's allowing you to witness, and He gives you that discernment.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. No, for sure. Who I can and who
you can't.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just showing your love to them. That's what I feel like. It's not the words necessarily. I don't have to say anything. He's like, just give them a hug. And so sometimes it's just giving, some old farmer who's 90 years old a hug. When I can tell, maybe he's not ready for me to talk anymore. Maybe I should just be quiet and give him a hug.
Well, and I think this is a good point for us to stop, but I want to continue this conversation on another podcast, and I'll talk to you about that in a little bit. But just giving a hug,
mm-hmm.
just showing that you care.
Mm-hmm.
We can all do that. I don't have to have my doctor's degree to do that. God gives me a degree through his Bible.
Yeah.
He gives us, we are him. We are a reflection of him. And I would like to end this podcast today just by saying, God can give us the strength to do anything that you let him do. I mean, I still doubt him sometimes, and I fall and he picks me back up.
Oh, me too.
We all do that. We've lost people in our lives that meant so much to us, but God has brought us through that and is using those stories to help other people. That's why I was so excited about you being on the podcast, is you were there. You were on that side. You and Mandy were, tight through thick and thin. It didn't matter. If somebody hurt you, you hurt her, and she's going to hurt you back, and you're going to hurt them back.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is God can sustain us through anything.
Yeah.
All we have to do is give it to him. And if you're out there today and you're having a hard time, you're having burdens, and you need some help, you need just to talk to somebody or whatever you need, I'm going to encourage you to go to my website, www.journey2positivechoices.com. That's journey, the number 2, positivechoices.com. And I want you to go on there and write to me. Let us know what's going on, and or if you need some help or whatever. And I'll, if you just want Brandee to know something, write to me, and we'll get together. If you want to donate or be a sponsor of this program, there's a QR code that you're seeing right now. Scan that and you can sponsor. Brandee, I appreciate you being here. I love you. I love Brian. Haven't really met Waylon. I already love him just because of his name. But this isn't the last one that we're going to be doing. We're going to do some more things together. But just thank you for what you do. Thank you for being the Christian example that you are, and thank you for being Mandy's friend.
Thank you. I'm honored to be on here. I can't wait to come back.
All right. Well, you guys be good, and I'll catch you next week.